You are listening to Earn Your Stripes, presented by Cardinal Spirits. This episode of Earn Your Stripes is presented by Cardinal Spirits, a distillery and bar in Bloomington, Indiana. Thank you to Cardinal Spirits for jumping on as the presenting sponsor of this podcast. We really appreciate it. Look forward to doing business going forward. But if you've not heard of Cardinal Spirits or have not been in there, tried any of their products, you need to do so pretty soon. They hooked us up with a nice box, a starter kit, so to speak. And I got to tell you, their spiced rum, I'm a harsh critic of spiced rum because that's one of my favorite drinks, a nice Captain and Coke or rum and Coke. But the Cardinal Spirits spiced rum rivals any of them. I really enjoyed drinking it with some Coke Zero. Their vodka goes really well with Red Bull. They have gin, coffee liquor, anything you could imagine. And I think you would really enjoy trying it out. We'll be doing some distillery tour giveaways throughout the next couple of months with Cardinal Spirits now as the presenting sponsor. So be looking at our Facebook page, Twitter, or just follow the podcast page and continue to listen to the podcast for updates on those competitions to see if you can win a free distillery tour to Cardinal Spirits. Their tasting room bar is open Monday through Thursday from 4 to 10 p.m., Friday from 12 p.m. to 12 a.m., Saturday from 10 a.m. to 12 a.m., Sunday from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. The kitchen is open for dinner Monday through Sunday from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. and for brunch on Saturday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. They're located at 922 South Morton Street in Bloomington. Check them out online. You can call them at 812-202-6789 or visit them online, cardinalspirits.com.
Well, I think we're going to get to our interview now with Ed Schilling. I think it was really actually informative. We learned a lot about Indiana basketball as well as, how he values players as a coach, how he got to Indiana. Just some really good stuff. He's a really great interview. I think you guys will enjoy it.
Yeah, so here's the assistant Indiana men's basketball coach now, our featured interview on this episode.
So, Ed, before we get into IU or anything, obviously you and I share some common ground. You coached and I played with him and against him, Yogi Ferrell. He's a very unique competitor, I'm sure you know. You saw him in high school.
Yeah.
Did he always have that ambition, or what things really led up to it?
Well, he always has had that super laser focus. I think in coaching him in high school for 3 years and then having him in camps and things like that before then, when he was younger, I don't think his eyes ever left my eyes during a timeout or when I called him over. I mean, he just had that burning desire to do what you tell him and to go out and compete. Probably the biggest thing you could do with him is give him some sort of challenge, and that just took him to another level.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's so just playing with him, he's definitely one of a kind there. I think, when you're looking at his product, which is his competitive greatness, I think he's, one of the best competitors I've ever played with. And, just finding out the day-to-day things that kind of went into that recipe of his greatness was it was really one of a kind. I mean, I think it was undervalued how much it inspired the entire team to basically follow him.
Absolutely. I think a couple of things stand out when in coaching him. One, we would go through a whole shooting system every single day of practice when I coached at Park Tudor High School, and I was coaching there and running my academy. Is we would go through this half-hour shooting thing where we'd record every shot, and he took every one for 3 years as if it were the game winner. I mean, he just to win the state championship or win the NCAA championship. I mean, he had that type of focus on every shot, and when your best player has that type of attention to detail and that type of focus, it makes it pretty easy to coach because the rest of the team's going to fall in line.
Exactly.
And, one of the other things that I remember is we were playing in the regional in Connorsville, and we're playing it was the morning game, and you play 2 games in a day. And I remember he came down and he took a couple really deep jump shots, 25 feet or something. So I called timeout and I brought him over and I just kind of ripped him. I said, "You mean to tell me this team is so good that they make you shoot 25 footers? You mean that guy right over there is so good?" And anyway, there was a quick timeout. He went back out and I think he shot about the next 8 shots were layups. He just blew by guys, but that's how he was, though. I mean, he would take he could take critique, and he would take what you told him and he would apply it. Where a lot of guys may listen, they may not listen. This kid listened and he applied it, and then he tried to take it to another level.
Oh yeah, I mean, he's just wired differently, and it was a pleasure to play with. I mean, I tell you what, it was a hassle to play against when I was at Michigan, and it was just so, you could just tell who the head of the snake was, and he was so tough. Yeah. Speaking with the players you've worked with, obviously you worked with like the Gordon Haywards and Greg Odens, Mike Connolly, Cody Zeller, and all the UCLA talent that's been there the past couple of years. So you've seen talent, you understand like how guys are wired at the elite level. So I have a question. So who is one guy you wish you could have coached?
That I haven't had a chance to coach, huh?
Yeah, just you've seen a lot of guys with their winning attitudes and what it takes to be great. From what you've heard or seen, is there maybe one guy in the NBA or anything that you're like, man, like I love his work ethic. I love what he stands for, the things that go into his competitive greatness. I would have liked to coach him.
Well, one of the guys, and it's kind of an interesting story. When I was an assistant with the New Jersey Nets, back when I was in New Jersey, I'm showing my age, we worked out a little high school kid that was trying to go right from high school to college. And, I remember working this kid out, and he, for the pre-draft thing. And I remember, man, he was just terrific. And after the workout was over, he grabbed me and he said, the workouts are really hard. And usually these guys are ready to get out of there. And the two of us stayed in the gym in New Jersey, and we worked for about another 45 minutes, which was just unheard of to like even do an extra shot after how hard we put those guys through. Well, we ended up not getting the kid in the draft, but he ended up being good, and I sure wish we could have coached him. I think it would have made our careers a lot about. His name's Kobe Bryant. And,
there we go. So I was wondering.
I would have liked to. Yeah, I would have liked to have coached him. Let's put it that way. But there was a lot of extenuating circumstances. We ended up getting Kerry Kittles, who was a nice player and had a very good career. Now he's a college coach actually in the Ivy League. But I think Kobe Bryant would have been a lot of fun to coach.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard those Kobe stories. Again, talking about guys just wired differently and appreciate competition and just love the work ethic, just lives and dies by putting in that extra 40 minutes an hour or so. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, he was young at that point too. You said he was in high school, right?
Yeah, he was coming right out of high school. Now, I was also coming right out of high school because I had gone from Logansport High School to UMass, where I was with John Calipari, but also Bruiser Flint, as we know, been reunited here at Indiana. And then I was right to the NBA. And so I was really only about 300 and some days removed from being a high school teacher and coach. So Kobe and I, we had dinner that night when he got into New Jersey. I picked him up at the airport and then had dinner with him. So he was just like one of my students that I was working with at Logansport. Granted, a little bit better talent than I had with the Berries, but nonetheless, I mean, we had just a whole lot. It was real easy for the two of us to hang out.
Gotcha. I mean, so you understand the high school side. When you're coaching college kids, what's the biggest thing? So something that John Beeline, when I played for him, he had a quote that he always said. Freshmen, they just want to play. Sophomores, they want to start. Juniors, they want to score. And seniors, I tell you what, they just want to win. What's something that a freshman like thinks he knows, but doesn't really realize he didn't know until he was a senior?
Well, I think the biggest thing is just how hard it is to win. A lot of times in high school, you can just have more talent than the other guy, and you win the game, and it's not a big deal. I think young players don't understand how hard you have to work mentally and physically, but then how difficult it is to win a Division I game. I think that's the biggest thing. And for players to understand like all that goes into winning one basketball game or winning a game for, as you would say, in the Big Ten or the Pac-12 or whatever, to win one of those games, they don't understand how difficult that is. And I think, especially freshmen coming in, they just don't get how hard you have to compete on a daily basis to be able to win at this level.
Yeah. I mean, it's it's, they're almost talent spoiled for so many years of their life. Everyone playing, especially at the Big Ten level, they're all the best kid on their high school team, and they all had that ability to just take over a game. It's almost like, it's like evening the playing field and letting them be a regular person. And actually have to understand what it takes, behind the scenes, with your work ethic and mentality.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's completely different. I know what you mean. Like, I had back when I was in high school and I was playing, I could just go to the block and post up, do my drop step, and drop about 30 points. And then I go and I'm playing against the AJ Hammonds and the Adrian Paynes. It's like, this is not the same level. I got to expand my game. That's where I really developed my 3-point shot. So it's I think it grows you. I mean, it just kind of shows how different challenges can really grow you.
Absolutely. And I think there's a lot of life skills associated with that, whether regardless of what they're going to do after the air finally comes out of the basketball, but you realize just you can work so much harder than you really thought you could. And what the normal person realizes, you get a whole new appreciation for work ethic when you play Division I basketball.
Yeah. I got one more question about just, being
Sure.
Recruiting. And so I remember, like, when I was at AAU and, you look over and you see the rainbow of coaches all sporting their college shirt, and someone has a crazy dunk that, like, some of those AAU kids, I tell you what, they are stupid athletic. And, I'd be like,
Right.
I'd be so impressed. My jaw would drop. And I look over to the stands, and every coach, no matter what school they're with, kept this poker face. And, I'm like, man, that didn't impress me. It kind of surprised me at first, but I get it. It's part of the job. So what really impressed you watching a kid play AAU? I know, like, there's some people say they look for a kid doing something different, whether it's talking on defense or taking charges, because it's not natural. Everyone thinks they have to go out there and, shoot and score, and that's how they're going to get to the best school in the entire, nation. So what's something you really look for in AAU watching a kid play?
Well, obviously they have to have a certain talent level. If they don't have a certain talent level, then obviously you're not probably watching them to begin with. But, I think one of the things that I like to see is a kid that really cares about winning. In the summers, a lot of times, how it is, you're playing so many games in so many cities during the course of the summer. And, whether you win or not, you're in the Platinum Division. So, they're playing the next game. They're in the pool. They go from pool play to bracket play, regardless of what their record was. So seeing a kid that really values winning is something that kind of always catches my attention. A lot more than a windmill dunk or something like that when nobody's running back on defense. A kid that really values winning when the game doesn't necessarily impact, what they're going to do the next day or the next couple of days. That's something that catches my attention.
Yeah, I guess that shows that you were probably a little bit more mature watching these kids than I was when I was in high school. I was the starry-eyed, like, oh my God, did you just do that? That's definitely interesting.
But that's the thing that matters in the end, right, Max? I mean, you see a guy and he can put up all the highlights and the numbers he wants in AAU, but when it really comes down to it at the next level and even at the NBA level, how badly do you want to win? Do you have that Russell Westbrook, I'm going to chase down every offensive rebound and give us 9 shots to try and tie this game up at the end? Or is it just not all that important to you? I think that's what really separates the greats from the talented guys that end up being very good. Would you guys agree with that?
I really do. And I think that's one of the things that Coach Miller is passionate about here is I'm trying to teach and to show these guys. And a lot of these guys weren't, the high-end players last year. They weren't the go-to guys where the winning and losing was on their shoulders, for the bulk of this team, and really trying to teach them what it takes to win and how hard you have to play and how important the details are. And, that's probably been the biggest challenge so far. And we believe they're going to get there, but it's a challenge nonetheless.
Along those same lines, I mean, how can you kind of speak to how difficult it is to implement a brand new system that's quite a bit different from the system these guys had been running? And do you think it's almost maybe easier for the guys coming in fresh than the guys like Robert Johnson and Josh Newkirk that have been playing in a different system for a number of years and are trying to shift here at the end of their career?
That's a great question. I think it is quite a challenge because my high school coach, Jim Rosensteel, who won over 500 games, and he used to say habits, good or bad, are hard to break. And if you've got a habit of getting out and denying passing lanes, and you're out there versus pack line, that's a hard change. And a lot of times when fatigue sets in, you go back to wherever your habits are. And so trying to break some habits, and not that one system's necessarily better than another. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to win a basketball game, but when you've got to have everybody on the same page in order to win, especially if you don't have, you don't have 3 or 4 lottery picks in your lineup. So you've got to all be on the same page. And all it takes, as you know, is 1 or 2 guys to revert back to an old habit, and boom, you're getting scored on, or you're turning the ball over, or something like that. So I do think it's maybe in some regards harder for a veteran guy, a guy that's played under a different system. And again, not to be critical of any system, because they all can win. But yeah, making that change and to get everybody on the same page is definitely a challenge.
When I had you on the podcast when you first took the job over the summer, you spoke about how much you respected Archie from afar and what you knew of him and how that job kind of came to be. Now that you're up close working with him every day, you're around him, working next to him, is there anything that surprised you about him that you didn't expect, or anything different than what you initially thought when you took the job in the off season?
Well, I just, my admiration has continued to grow. I just think he has an incredible vision and passion for how he wants the game played, and he is unrelenting in getting this accomplished. And it's consistent. He's not different one day than he is from the next. It is absolute. What to expect, and he's bringing it every single day. There's no wonder what coach is going to be like today. No, he's the same every day, and he brings the passion, he brings the focus, the attention to detail is there every day, and he sets the standard. He doesn't have to tell anybody that he's in charge or whatever. No, it's obvious that he's bringing it every single day, and that's something that I've really respected. Is obviously he has his understanding of the game, his drills, how everything is leading and streamlined towards exactly what we're trying to do offensively and defensively. There's no wasted time. There's no wasted drill. Everything is streamlined towards what we're trying to do. But his consistency and his passion and attention to detail is what I've really come to admire.
Along those lines, I mean, I think one of the things that's been most impressive about him so far to Indiana fans and to me is his ability to recruit and the way he's gone about it, just his dedication to the kids and his no-nonsense business-like straightforward approach to it, which I wonder from your perspective, being around a lot of different coaches and a lot of different programs and seeing how the recruiting process goes, how unique do you think it is, his style? It almost reminds me of Brad Stevens' recruiting style with Boston. He's not just going to try and sell you on the history of the program or the organization. He's going to tell you specifically how he plans to use you, and he's not going to make any promises he can't hold. How unique do you think that is, and do you think that's a big reason why he's had success in getting kids like Robert Fennessy to commit without even taking an official visit anywhere?
Well, I think the biggest thing is just how honest he is, and a great analogy with Brad Stevens, because he recruited quite a few of my players at, a couple of my guys at Park Tudor. And then I also coached against him and had a chance to speak to his staff. He had me in a couple of times when I was doing the academy type thing. But, Arch is very much like that. I mean, what you see is what you get. There's not he's not going to be any different in front of a recruit than he is sitting in the office or sitting in his house. He's not putting on any. There's no fakeness to him, and I think recruits really like that. I mean, I think a lot of times they see all these coaches, the parade of coaches come through, and the one thing they see about Arch is, you know what, this guy is authentic. He's not sitting up there telling jokes, and that's not him. He is who he is, and he's like that all the time. And I think players have a sense of comfort with that they kind of like, okay, I know what to expect here. This isn't some sales job.
Yeah, and just that authenticity. I mean, just the landscape of all of college basketball. That recruiting style. From my personal experience, getting recruited and hearing stories from old teammates. The honesty in recruiting. It's how important is that? Just because so many kids are like, they get told, you're going to start here, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, and like it almost builds onto their ego of high school. Like I can, you know what I mean? Like they have this ego in high school. I can change the game. I don't have to. It's winning isn't. You know what I mean? Winning is easy. It's I'm this good, and it builds up to their ego. Having that different pitch. How important is that long term for a kid to understand? Hey, just the honesty is what's important. Because at 18 years old, I tell you what, I would rather hear, Max, you're going to start, we're going to go to the Final Four, than I would rather hear, Max, like you might not play till your sophomore year. But it's just the truth. But long term, I would value that second one so much more.
Well, yeah, and he's not saying, hey, you're not going to start. He's going to say, here's how we play. Here's who we have in the program. We think you could be a great player here at Indiana. Here's why. Here's how we play. And he'll show them, hey, here's what we're looking to do on misses. Here's what we're looking to do on defensively. Here's how we're going to play. Can you see yourself in this system? And, and some guys are yes and others are no. But I mean, the one thing we're going to be is we're going to come after it. But we're going to do it in a way that, again, is authentic. It's not, we're not building these guys up that, you're the next Michael Jordan here. But at the same time, you know what? We have a unique style of play. We have an incredible tradition. We have a lot of things to offer. Is this a good fit for you? We think it is, or we wouldn't be here. That's kind of, he's going to be real honest like that. It's not promising in the world, but we are promising a great opportunity.
And do you think that works better? I was watching one of your interviews talking about recruiting, but differences between LA and Indiana. Obviously, here it tends to be stereotypically, it's more of the homegrown blue collar. You're saying that coaches kind of have more say. There's not as many third parties playing the strings and doing that. How much does the Indiana basketball culture and recruits especially, do you see them just from a stereotype of where they're from, value that honesty?
Well, I think more so. I mean, a lot of times when you get to, the more people that are involved in the process, the more there's people gassing these guys up to the point that it's truly unrealistic. And, they think they're one and done and all that. Well, shoot, a lot of times that's not going to be the case. It's, whether a McDonald's All-American or not. And so I think one thing that I've found, at least with Midwest kids in general, is there are less people involved in the recruiting process. And that allows you to really get to know the main people better, as opposed to LA, for example, or some of those LA type kids. There's so many people involved, and you never know who's the one that has the kid's ear and blah, blah, blah. Where here, it's kind of, a lot of times it's the parents, it's the high school coach. And, that's makes it a lot easier, at least easier for them to know what you're about. Doesn't necessarily make it easier to get the young man, but, at least it's easier for you to say, hey, here's who we are. Is this what, as opposed to all the smoke and mirrors, do we get into the right guy? And this guy's pushing one agenda because he has something involved. Less of that here. And so for that reason, I think I'm a lot better suited for it anyway.
A little more natural, the parent-child relationship.
Yes.
Coach, I know you got to get off to practice, but wanted to ask you one more question, kind of wrap this back around to where we started with Max asking you about Yogi. And I may be completely off here, but when I watch Devontae Green play, especially in that Seton Hall game. I saw small little flashes of Yogi in him, in the sense that a guy that could maybe grow into a leader, a point guard, and an elite player in the Big Ten eventually. Do you see anything in Devontae Green? You've been around a lot of great point guards, and I know that he's not your traditional point guard, but I kind of feel like he has the vision and the skill set necessary to become one if need be. Do you see that in him? And would you agree that there's some flashes there of a guy that could grow into a leader and a star in the college game?
Well, I certainly think he has the athleticism. He has that burst, that athletic burst of speed like a Yogi would have, where he could just blow by guys. And I think he's the one guy on our team that really has that type of physical talent to be able to become a great on-ball defender and to be able to impact the game at both ends. In the fact that he can guard a quick guard, he has strength, and he also has ball skills and speed and can make shots. So I think there's a lot of the talent level is there. I think he's got to continue to grow in his consistency in terms of practice and games and that type stuff. And then also the one thing that I think Max alluded to was just Yogi's the mental toughness and the mental consistency that every single day you knew what you were getting. And I think that's the unique trait that if a guy like Devontae could get that and grow into that, certainly the sky's the limit for him.
All right, Coach. Well, we certainly appreciate you taking the time to do this. I know you got a busy schedule and the season is in full swing now, but we really enjoyed having you. Thanks for doing it.
My pleasure. Look forward to seeing you guys. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks, Coach.